Episode 41, Airing Out My Grievuses, originally posted May 29, 2019. However you may feel about the Star Wars prequels, there is no denying how much they added to the Star Wars mythos, in terms of characters, planets, and new ideas. Most notably, I really enjoyed the new villains we got. Episode 1 gave us a double lightsaber-wielding devil-horned Sith, Darth Maul. In Episode 2, we got the Dark Jedi turncoat, Count Dooku. But for Episode 3, George Lucas decided to do something different for the new baddie. Instead of a Force-wielding Sith Lord, we got a new general to lead the Separatist droid army, the mechanical monstrosity named Grievous. General Grievous actually made his official debut before the Revenge of the Sith, in an episode of the Star Wars Clone Wars micro-series. And it was quite the debut as he battled and defeated a group of Jedi, including Aayla Secura and council members Ki-Adi-Mundi and Shaak-Ti. It was only through the intervention of a squad of clone troopers that the 3 Jedi managed to escape. The 3 other Jedi with them were not as fortunate. Although Grievous himself was not a Force user, he was quite skilled with a lightsaber, having been trained by Count Dooku. He had a collection of lightsabers taken from Jedi that he had killed. He also had the added ability to split his arms, doubling their number from 2 to 4, with each wielding a lightsaber. And if that wasn't enough, his clawed feet were also used as additional arms, able to hold weapons or grab opponents as well. Visually, Grievous was truly a sight to behold, unlike anything I'd ever seen in Star Wars, and it made me all the more excited to see this character translated into the big screen. Unfortunately, when he finally came out in Episode 3, he was significantly different from what I had seen in the cartoon. For the most part of the movie, he was portrayed as a coward who would rather run than fight. He also looked sickly, oftentimes hunched over with a racking cough. It was only towards the latter part of the movie when he decided to take on Ben Kenobi in a fight, and although the fight was fairly entertaining, it was a far cry from when he easily dispatched 6 Jedi in his debut, and in the end, Kenobi used a blaster to blow Grievous away. Anyway, there sort of was an explanation on why Grievous from the cartoon and in the movie were quite different. It turned out that the Grievous in the movie was already, grievously injured. So it turned out that despite leading a massive droid army, General Grievous himself wasn't actually a droid. He was originally a Kaleesh warrior turned into a cyborg secretly under the orders of Darth Sidious. While he was mostly mechanical, he still retained a small portion of his organic Kaleesh body. His brain, eyes, spinal cord, and several vital organs remained, most of which were stored in his chest, an abdominal cavity protected by a synth-skin gut sac and some metal plating. Unfortunately, his remaining organic parts, particularly his lungs, didn't take well to his new cybernetic parts, resulting in him constantly coughing and wheezing. During one of the final episodes of the Clone Wars series, Grievous led a bold assault to kidnap Darth Sidious's alter ego, Supreme Chancellor Sheev Palpatine. But before he could successfully escape with his prisoner, the Jedi Master Mace Windu force-crushed his chest cavity, causing the steel plates to cut into his lungs, further aggravating breathing problems and significantly weakening him for the rest of his life. Now before you start typing in the comments about how this animated microseries is non-canon, yes, I know that as well. However, from what I remember, it really doesn't contradict anything established in the movie story-wise, and in fact, kinda helps explain stuff such as Grievous's sudden change in the films. So in my head, it's all good. Anyway, despite his shortcomings, visually, General Grievous is one of the most unique and memorable characters to come out of the prequel trilogy, and he was definitely a favorite of mine and at the top of my wish list of Black Series characters that I hoped that Hasbro would produce sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, for the first few years of the Black Series line, Hasbro made it pretty clear that characters from the prequels were not a priority for them, so for the longest time, getting a Grievous seemed to be more of a pipe dream. Then, in 2015, Disney announced the release of a new General Grievous toy as part of their exclusive Star Wars Elite Series toy line that was sold in their parks and online store. Now this line featured action figures slightly larger, around 7 inches, than Hasbro's Black Series so as to not directly compete with them. But a slightly oversized Grievous definitely would work for me in my Black Series collection. So, I patiently waited till the early hours of the morning for General Grievous to go on sale online at the Disney Store website, and when he did, I eagerly scooped him up. In a few minutes, he was sold out. Apparently, I wasn't the only one excited to get a Grievous on their shelves. So, I got my Grievous without having to resort to buying him at an overly inflated price on the secondary market. And if that wasn't good enough fortune, it seemed that the stars aligned perfectly for me to get my Grievous in hand. Since the Disney store didn't ship directly to the Philippines, I had it sent to my sister in New York instead. And at the same time, I had a friend who was currently vacationing there, who got it from my sister and graciously brought it back home to my waiting arms. And then, I opened him up. So another feature of Disney's Elite series line was that they added die-cast metal to their figures, which supposedly made them more high-end. Unfortunately, for such a spindly frame as Grievous, all this die-cast made him unnecessarily heavy and quite difficult to stand. And then the disappointments kept coming. His arms, which were attached to the body via ball and socket joints, could barely stay up, especially when they held lightsabers which themselves hung loosely from his hands. And the worst part was that his legs lacked proper ankle articulation and came pre-posed, so you could literally only stand the figure up one way. That is, if you actually got him to stand up in the first place. I was in denial for a couple days, but eventually I had to concede that this action figure was a complete dud. I sadly packed him up and put him up for sale online. Fortunately, demand for the figure was still at an all-time high, and so I had no problem finding a buyer at a little padded cost. To be fair, I warned the buyer of all the issues and why I was selling him, but he still insisted, so there you go. The next opportunity to own a General Grievous came a few years later when Bandai released a General Grievous model kit. This was great news for me since by this point I was a big fan of their model kits, and their lightweight nature seemed to be perfect for Grievous's design. And it turned out that I was right. Like the other model kits before him, Grievous was fun to build and the finished product was easy to pose and mess around with. He also came with switchable parts so you could have him in his 2 or 4 arm configuration. But after having him built, I knew he wasn't quite done. One of the drawbacks for model kits in general is, well, they were models that basically needed to be painted to finish them off. As is, they're pretty presentable, but can look a little plain if left unpainted. And so I handed him over to a very talented customizer and painter, Marvin de la Cruz, who was more than happy to help my Grievous reach its full potential. The work he did was very subtle but effective, and I especially loved the detailed work he did on each lightsaber hilt. I'll let the pictures speak for themselves. Finally, in 2018, after having gotten around to making prequel characters, Hasbro announced their plans for a Black Series Grievous. Now, while I was very happy with my model kit version, I still decided to check this Hasbro version out. I figured it wouldn't be the worst thing to have 2 Grievouses, as I could have him displayed in both 2 and 4 arm configurations. Anyway, when I finally got him, I was kinda underwhelmed. To be fair, all in all, he's a pretty decent figure, and if building and painting models isn't your thing, then this guy is more than suitable for your Grievous needs. He's a definitely more solid action figure with a better cape, which is one of the weak points of the model kit, and most notably, he can actually alternate between 2 and 4 armed configurations without switching out parts. Problem is that he feels a bit undersized. Who knows if it's actually more accurate, but in my eyes, and standing next to my model kit and other Black Series figures, he looked small and less imposing. In the end, it bothered me so much that I decided to sell him as well. I kept his cape though, which fit perfectly on my model kit Grievous. As collectors, we are always looking for the perfect representations of our favorite characters to place on our shelves. As a result, collecting can involve a lot of trial and error purchases. Such was the case with General Grievous. In the end, I'm very happy and content with what I have. With his custom paint and improved cape, I have a very unique version of Grievous that I can proudly place on my shelf. One that definitely doesn't give me any grief. So are there any other fans of General Grievous out there? And as collectors, have any of you gone through numerous trial and error purchases in order to get the perfect rendition of your favorite character? Let me know in the comments below and tell me your story. Thanks for watching Stories from the Toy Shelf Redux. If you enjoyed this story, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel to help me tell more. Until the next one.